Hi, my name is Father Columba. Hi. You're joining me here in Moyross in Limerick in Ireland. Lovely to meet you all. Today I wanted to talk about relationships, more about relationships, and also more about conversations. Sometimes conversations are great fun. They're mostly, they're very positive, but sometimes you have to have a conversation with someone and it's not nice. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And these are sometimes, called like confrontation, but I've seen them called crucial conversations. And I think that's a great word because these are the conversations that really can make or break a relationship, but also how bearable our life is. Often we need to have a talk with someone and we don't want to. And I want to avoid it. No! Because we might be afraid to confront people. I don't like confronting people at all. I don't know how you are. Most people don't like confrontation. They don't like being confronted and they don't like confronting other people. So it's a thing to say, right, even though I don't like it, how can I do this and do this well? To get the most out of my relationships and most out of my life too. In the Bible, there's many encouragements to do things like this. St. Paul in his letter to the Ephesians talks about different aspects of this, at least about relationships and like being just in relationships and things like that. But the story of King David is really helpful. So King David, as you may know, incredible follower of the Lord, incredible general and all sorts of things, incredibly talented, and he united Israel in an extraordinary way, and so he's sort of taken as the ultimate biblical leader almost, apart from Jesus. He's held up as this amazing leader, but he wasn't perfect. And we particularly can see when it came to his own household, people closest to him, he wasn't good at confronting. And it brought about serious trouble. So this was true with his general. So there was, generals so the one general was very righteous, was actually Saul's general, but his own general did some seriously bad stuff over and over again. And David never did anything. He never did anything to reprimand him. He fought a lion and a bear and all of these battles and wars. Incredible warrior, incredibly courageous. And yet in this area, he was such a coward. And it almost destroyed his entire family. So we want to try and avoid that as much as possible. So how do we get good at this? How do we grow? So a couple of things that I've picked up along the way. I live in a community. So I'm pointing to my house right here to my left. We live in community as Franciscans. That's a big part of our way of life. So in community and in every family, there's always going to be tension, right? In fact, that's part of the purpose of community, actually, Christian community, is that we could kind of bang up against each other a bit and learn how to love and learn how to overcome these problems, learn how to forgive. Because if you live completely on your own, sometimes people live on their own because that's easier, because they don't want to confront people. Sometimes I do that. I just go to my room. It doesn't work very long, but it's something. So it's a good thing actually to be in these difficult situations. It's a good, if you're experiencing some challenge, that maybe it's an invitation from God to grow, to say, okay, what do I need to do to grow in this area? So something happens, right? Let's say in work, something happens, somebody says something to you. Let's say the boss, he publicly reprimands you in front of everybody, okay? And it's really embarrassing. And it's excessive. All right, and you are just, maybe in the moment, let's say you freeze. You don't say anything in the moment, but afterwards I go, what do I do? And maybe you get like really, really angry afterwards. Like, oh, how could he do that? Now, some people's challenge is in the moment they explode. The boss says something to them, it's maybe excessive and inappropriate, and they explode at the boss. Okay, that's gonna be short-lived. Bye-bye. You could lose your job over that one. But sometimes it's the other way. A lot of times it's the other way around, where people don't say anything and they don't explode, and they could do it. You know, that's two extremes. We need to get in the middle. We need to figure out, okay, I don't want to be controlled by my anger, but I do want to listen to it so as to know, okay, no, this is wrong and I need to fix it. And anger can give me the energy and the courage to actually get on with fixing the situation, dealing with it. So firstly, when I'm taking that time before I go and talk to the person, I might see, okay, what was my responsibility? What did I do that was off? Was there anything I did? That was me. Sometimes it's described as, okay, I want to check my side of the street, and I'm not sure about their side of the street. That's why I need to talk to them, what they did, what they're responsible for. But for me and what I'm responsible for, I want to make sure, right, was this actually me? What did I do something maybe to offend them? Can look back over the situation. Was I triggered? Now, by triggered, I don't mean I got angry. When we're triggered, it means my reaction, my emotional reaction, was greater than the cause. So the cause being my boss was just really critical of me, harshly critical. And but was my emotional reaction proportionate to that? So sometimes you have, somebody does something like that, and your reaction is just this massive, like, roar. It's like, well, everyone else looking at the situation, like, what that doesn't quite measure up, because, okay, he was insulting, but your reaction is as if he just killed your mother or something. It's vast. So we always want to see, okay, if that's happening, if there's kind of this excessive emotional reaction, this might actually be something from your history. It may not be just this situation with your boss. It might be something from your past. Did somebody else treat you this way? Was this something of the scenario, the structure of the home life growing up? So when the boss then does this, it's like, oh, that's just like my dad. And all of the anger you haven't dealt with about your dad comes roaring out. So it's more than just this event's anger, it's a pile of anger. You could also ask, like, were they triggered? Now, we can never know, what's in them, what's a trigger, what's not. But, was their reaction, balanced and proportioned to what was actually being done and said? Was there anything actually done that was wrong? This is a really important thing. Sometimes I'm really annoyed, but when I stop and look, okay, what did they do? Okay, was that thing wrong? Sometimes it actually wasn't wrong. Sometimes people are just annoying. Have you ever had this one? Yeah, you're just annoying me. Your idiosyncrasies, they have this way they do things, and I just don't like it. So what I found is trying not to sweat the small stuff. If it's only just their idiosyncrasies, then that may not be the hill you want to die on. That may not be the fight you want to pick. You might want to go for something a bit more serious. So usually with those ones, it's good to just say, okay, this really annoys me. Why does it annoy me? Does it remind me of something in me that I don't like, or something in somebody else I don't like? Does this remind me of my childhood? Just let it be a reason, and with the triggers too, a reason, an invitation to go digging in your heart, to spend some time, maybe in prayer, but just maybe write out, okay, what's at the root of this? Why do I feel this way? What does it remind me of? That kind of thing. The next thing is to act quickly. So you don't want to just sit on it and do nothing, or, nurse the wound for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then finally, just when you're really bitter, go and talk to them. You want to act quickly. St. Paul tells us, don't let the sun set on your anger. So that's pretty quick, right? In other words, deal with the anger today. So that's not always exactly possible, but what I would try to do is I'll try to calm down and take a look, okay, tease it out a little bit. Was that me? Was that them? And then I will make an appointment with them. I'll say, hey, do you have time to talk in the next day or two? See what can be organized. It's good because that actually makes it an act of love. In doing this too, I always try to say, okay, what's my motives? Because sometimes it can be just so difficult. Somebody could be really annoying and they're always at you. And sometimes I kind of want to get them back a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, I got them now. So is revenge part of the motivation? Just a thing, check yourself. If it is, you need to go back to prayer and back to digging in your heart and say, right, okay, it's either revenge or I'm trying to restore the relationship. So you need to choose. And if it's revenge, I recommend that you don't have a conversation with them, because it's not going to help. It's just going to make it worse. Whereas when you're ready to say, no, I really want to restore the relationship, then great, go for it, move forward. Next point would be to go heart first. Go heart first. By this, I mean be vulnerable. Leave your claws at the door, which is kind of like the whole thing of it. Don't go in it for revenge. Go in heart first. So when somebody's confronting me, if I feel that they're attacking me in any way, even no matter how much I want to, it's so hard not to get defensive, right? It's so hard if someone attacks you to not attack back, because they're triggered. They're pushing my buttons. I want to get them. So when I am confronting someone else, I try to bear that in mind and say, okay, if I can maybe be a bit more understanding of them, and what I'll sometimes do is I'll take responsibility first. I'll say, hey, in the conversation earlier today, there was a couple of things I recognize my response wasn't great. Just wanted to talk about that. So I'll go in first by admitting what I did wrong, and in some ways emphasizing that, just so I'm saying, like, it's not all your fault. I know that both of us are involved here. So I find when I do that, it really opens the other person up. So now, okay, they realize it's not just a witch hunt. I'm not just blaming them for everything, but something did happen. And as I'm being vulnerable, then that kind of opens the door for them to be vulnerable too and honest. I'll presume that any hurt I did get was accidental, because I don't actually know why they did this. I don't know why they said this. Maybe it actually had great reasons and I don't understand those. So I'll just try to be humble and open, say, no, I don't actually know why this happened. I don't really know what they were thinking, but I'm going to ask, I'm going to be curious. And maybe it was something that was really wrong, in which case we're going to talk about that. Maybe, I don't know why, but maybe I'm totally to blame. Maybe it's more than anything my fault, and I totally have missed it. So again, that's a great reason to go in humbly, because that way, if it does turn out to be like largely my fault, I'm not gonna look like I'm, I don't have pie on my face. I'm not gonna be embarrassed, like, oh right, okay, it actually wasn't you, it was entirely me. So that's why it's also good to go in really humbly and gently, go in heart first. Throughout the whole thing, try to stay curious, like, what can I learn here? What can I learn about myself? What can I learn about you? What can I learn about how to do this better and how to love better? Okay, then I get down into the heart of the situation. I'll try to say, okay, what actually happened? Now, again, we have to be careful, and the best way to do this so that the other person doesn't feel like they're being blamed or attacked is if we just describe the situation and how it made us feel. That's all. So I say, okay, so as far as I was able to see, this is what happened. I said this, you said that, and then the other person said that other thing, and then you said this stuff to me, if I understand that correctly. But this is how it made me feel. Now, they don't know how it made you feel before, so that's another way that you're being vulnerable. I'm saying, okay, it actually was, I found that really embarrassing and even shaming. Like that was really painful for me to go through that. I was also really angered by it, stuff like that. That might sound like it's an attack. It's actually not. So I had a situation of this happen one time in a friary. One of the brothers, who's a dear friend, he asked me if we could talk. I'm like, oh, okay. So we go in the front room. I had no idea that I'd done anything. And then he describes some scenario. And then he said to me, I am so angry at you. And the amazing thing was, I didn't feel attacked. And I think that was maybe the first time in my life that anyone had expressed such a strong emotion directed at me, like anger at me for something I did. And I actually felt loved, because he didn't attack me. He just said, listen, you did this and such a thing, and this is how I'm feeling. But I felt no kind of attack or revenge motive in him at all. He just wanted to correct it. He wanted to deal with the situation. And he did. And I was like, oh, wow, I had no idea. It's like, I am so sorry. You're totally right. Whatever the thing was, I don't even remember, but I remember saying, oh, no, that's totally me. And it's great that it was done like that. No problem at all. So it's okay to describe how the thing made you feel. In fact, it's really important, because it's how it made you feel is the reason you're doing this thing, right? If it didn't hurt you, then you wouldn't be talking to this person. If you're like, I don't care. I don't care if my boss says whatever. I don't take it on. I don't really, give it any weight, so it doesn't impact me at all. So I just keep about my business. I mean, if that's you, then you probably don't need to have this conversation with them. But if it does annoy you, then you have to share that, because that's why you're here. It's important when sharing about what happened that you don't blame them. And that includes, you did such and such, and you made me feel such and such. It's like, okay, that's the problem, because they didn't make you feel anything. They did something, and then your heart responded in a certain way. But there's a disconnect there, and it's important that we distinguish those, because if I say you made me feel, dirty and small and useless, then that's a form of blame. And I say that because we want to get to a good resolution. Language like that can get people angry and defensive, and then it's really hard to get to a resolution. Don't try and pretend like you know why they acted and did such and such a thing. You don't. We have no clue. All we can do is say, listen, I saw this stuff. I felt this way. Can we talk? But I have no idea of their motives. That's why I'm here. I want to be curious about that and see what it is that they will share, and can we get resolution. So once I've done that, once I've kind of laid out, okay, this happened, you said such and such, and then I felt this way, I'll usually then pass it back to them and say, can you help me understand where you were coming from? I'd love to hear your perspective. So again, I'm not blaming, I'm just saying, help me understand. I'm presuming, and I'm evident in my language, I'm presuming that I just don't understand where they were coming from. And if I did, I wouldn't be angry. It's like, oh, of course. And most of the times when I've brought this stuff to people and I've done that, when they finally say what it is and why they said it, I'm like, okay, I understand that. It's much easier to figure out things once we do that. It also can be important in the midst of this to ask some clarifying questions. To say, right, what did you mean by that? So, okay, so you thought I said I thought I said something else. Okay, and when you said that, what did that mean? Those kinds of things, just to tease it out a bit, that we give ourselves to really understand where the other person is coming from, and also to see, does this actually hold water? Does it make sense to me? If you are at fault, if I am at fault, repent quickly. Repent quickly. If it comes to light, like, okay, they take responsibility for this bit, you take responsibility for this bit, then you take the lead of saying sorry. Don't make excuses. Don't say, okay, well, here's why I did that, but this is my reasons why I did that. Don't make any excuses. The best apologies are like, do you know what? You're right. I'm really sorry. They don't have to know why you did it. If they ask, you could tell them. But I find when somebody just stops and just straight away says, you're dead right. That was me. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me, please? That means a lot. Now, if the other person was wrong and they say sorry, forgive them straight away out loud. Hopefully you've already processed through your anger and you're actually ready to forgive them. If you're not ready to forgive them, you might need to do a bit more digging, or maybe you need to do more work on the front end, before you go into the conversation. If you're actually seeking reconciliation, then it's important that we be open to forgiving them. Now, sometimes somebody says sorry, but they've said sorry so many times that it doesn't really carry any weight because they keep doing the same thing. I heard one person say, apologies without change is just manipulation. So sometimes it's a thing where this person, they just say sorry super easily, but they don't actually change. Then maybe you might want to say, okay, I hear and receive your apology, but then address that issue. You've apologized before and you just keep doing this. Can we talk about that? So that might be a different issue to bring up. Apart from this current issue of why you're having this conversation, there's also this issue of this keeps happening and you keep apologizing and then you do exactly the same thing. And that brings up another excellent point, that it's important when you're having a conversation like this that you don't reference lots of other hurts, that you just work on one thing. And this can be difficult if the other person responds with, well, but you did this to me. And you kind of want to start firing at each other, but you did that and you did that. So just to be able to take one topic at a time and say, hey, is it okay if we just focus on this one? Once we're done with this, we could talk about your hurt and what happened there. So in general, though, if they do take responsibility and they do say sorry, it's a great thing to forgive. To say, I thank you so much, I receive your apology, and of course I forgive you. Once they have repented, once they've said sorry, it's really important that you immediately start treating them as if the thing never happened. That you don't kind of hold back. Because sometimes we keep distance to somebody after something like this, and it actually it does more damage, that we don't get really restored in relationships. So once somebody apologizes, we forgive them, and then it's right back into a full connection and communication. Last 2 points. Sometimes with really tough ones, if you don't get resolution, you might want to get help. Find somebody like a third party who both of you respect and who has a bit of wisdom, also a bit of maybe emotional distance from the situation, and ask their help. Maybe ask them in on the next conversation so that they can kind of referee, so that things stay clear, and so that they can maybe help both of you see the stuff that you're not able to see right now. And lastly, this might be fairly obvious, but no gossip. No talking about the other person. So this is why we have courageous conversations. If we don't have it, we're going to end up gossiping, because the thing inside has to get out somehow. So instead of talking to other people about people who've hurt us, talk to the person who's actually hurt you and try to get resolution. And then after the whole thing's done and dusted, no gossip. Nobody else needs to know your business. It's not their business. And to tell anybody somebody else's sin when they don't need to know, that's actually the sin of detraction. So you have to be really careful about this. And it also just, the discretion of it keeps it really beautiful, clean, and it's a great way of honoring the person who's agreed to engage in this process of courageous conversation. So there you go. There's my few thoughts on this. I hope that's helpful. I realize this stuff isn't easy. Definitely a thing to bring to God. Ask Him for the courage to do this, for the love and the wisdom to be able to do it well. Thank you. God bless.